The rain had stopped, but the cold clung to Eric Hart's jacket as he trudged up the steps of his apartment building. His stomach had been empty since yesterday. Halfway up the stairwell, he stopped. A covered plate sat on the step, steam curling from beneath the foil. The smell of chicken and herbs hit him.
Who leaves a hot meal in the middle of a stairwell?
He glanced over his shoulder. No one. The hallway was silent. His fingers trembled as he reached down. He snatched the plate and hurried the rest of the way to his door, not daring to look back. Inside his apartment, he set the plate on the counter and opened the refrigerator. Bare shelves, a half-empty bottle of ketchup, and a carton of expired milk.
This isn't for me, but I can't afford to be proud.
He ate slowly, each bite a bitter mix of gratitude and humiliation. It was the first full meal he'd had in 3 days. The last forkful brought a tear to his eye. He wiped it quickly, ashamed of his own weakness. Outside, the stairwell light flickered. The step where the plate had been was empty, but the question remained: who had left it and why? The next morning, Eric opened his wallet. 2 10s and 3 1s. His stomach twisted. The meal from last night was already forgotten.
$23 left. 4 days till rent. And no paycheck coming.
He opened his laptop. The screen loaded. Another rejection from a job he'd interviewed for. We regret to inform you. He shut it before reading the rest.
11 interviews. Not a single offer. What's wrong with me? Hey, man. Yeah, I am doing great. Just taking a little time off, before I jump back into something.
He hung up and sat in the silence, the weight of the lie pressing on his chest.
I can't keep doing this, but what choice do I have?
That evening, he avoided the stairs until 9. When he finally passed them, the plate was there again, covered, steam curling into the chilly air. His hand trembled above it. Then, with a slow breath, he lifted the plate. He didn't look around. He just carried the plate inside, the shame settling heavier than before.
I have to know who's leaving these meals. Tonight, I'll watch.
He positioned himself behind the stairwell door, waiting. Hours passed. Then, near midnight, he heard a door creak open.
Please, sweetheart. Just a little longer. I will eat tomorrow. I promise.
She's starving. Her kid is starving. What am I doing? This food was meant for her.
He slipped down, plate in hand, and set it silently outside her door. Then he hurried back to his apartment, heart pounding. The next morning, the plate was still there, untouched. The foil hadn't even been lifted.
Why wouldn't she take it? Unless it was never for her.
That evening, he climbed the stairs slowly. On the step, a new plate sat waiting. Fresh steam. A different meal.
Someone is cooking just for me? Who? And why?
He stood frozen, the plate warming his hands. The kindness felt heavier than any debt. The warmth of the plate drew him back to his apartment. But halfway down the hall, a sharp voice stopped him.
You, that plate. I've seen it on the stairs 3 nights now. Who's leaving it? This is a health violation.
It's mine. I leave it out to cool. No one else is doing it.
Don't let it attract pests. Keep your mess inside. Final warning.
Now I have to sneak around even more. If the food stops, I don't know what I'll do.
Back in his kitchen, he opened a drawer. Empty. He pulled out a jar of coins and dumped it onto the counter.
Maybe enough for a few staples, but what if the food stops coming? What then?
He spent the afternoon washing his only decent shirt by hand, scrubbing out a stain he'd been ignoring for weeks.
1 interview tomorrow. If that doesn't work out, I don't know how much longer I can keep this up.
That night, he waited until the hallway was completely silent before retrieving the plate. The secret felt heavier with every step. The next morning, Eric wrote a quick note on a torn sheet of notebook paper. "Thank you. Whoever you are keeping me alive." He folded it and left it on the empty plate, hoping the cook would find it before anyone else. When he returned that evening, the plate was back, and a small folded note rested on top. It read, "You are welcome, a friend."
A friend. Someone close enough to see me, yet unknown. I have to find out who.
So he waited again, hidden in the shadows of the stairwell, until he heard soft footsteps after midnight. A woman in a powder blue apron appeared, carrying a steaming plate. She placed it on the step with care, then turned and walked down the hallway. Eric followed her at a distance, watching her pause at a door and slip inside.
Apartment 2B. Tomorrow, I'll find out who she is. I owe her that much.
The next morning, Eric checked the mailbox for 2B. A name was scribbled on a faded sticker, a Cole. He knocked twice. No answer. The apartment was silent.
Not home. Maybe I'll catch her later.
That afternoon, fresh from another job rejection, he found a woman in the hallway, arms full of grocery bags, struggling with her keys.
Let me help you with those.
Oh, thank you. I am Amelia. You live on this floor?
Eric. Yeah. 2A. Just down the hall. I've seen the plates you leave. They're really kind.
I cook extra every night. It's just for whoever's hungry. No need to make a thing of it.
So, that's it. She's just generous. But why do I feel this strange pull toward her?
He handed her the last bag, said a quiet goodbye, and walked to his door. Her smile followed him down the hall. The next night, Eric hid behind the stairwell door again. At midnight, Amelia appeared, carrying the familiar steaming plate.
Only one plate. Always one. She says it's for anyone. But what if it's only for me?
He decided to test it. He left the plate untouched and crept back to his apartment, stomach aching. At dawn, he checked it. The plate was still there, untouched. Not a single person had claimed it.
If it was really for the building, someone would have taken it by now. She's been waiting for me.
A few minutes later, Amelia came out. She saw the untouched plate, her shoulders dropping. Silently, she fetched it. That evening, the ritual repeated. A new plate, fresh steam. She had cooked again, undeterred.
She's not feeding the building. She's feeding me. Only me. But why won't she just say it?
He lifted the plate, the weight of unspoken devotion settling over him like a second coat.
I need to know why me. I can't keep taking without understanding.
Eric wrote 4 words on a scrap of paper, his hand shaking. "Is this just for me?" He folded it and placed it on the clean plate, hoping Amelia would find it before dawn. The next evening, a plate waited again, with a small note tucked under the foil. The note said, "It's for whoever needs it. You need it."
She knows. Not just the plate, but me. She's been watching.
He stared at the words, the paper trembling in his hand. The anonymity was gone, replaced by an unsettling warmth.
This isn't charity. It's something quieter. Something meant only for me.
He couldn't pretend it was for anyone else. The secret was theirs alone, unspoken, but known.
I have to talk to her. No more notes. No more hiding.
He lifted the plate, the note pressed to his palm, and carried both inside. The truth followed him. That night, Eric made a choice. He walked past the stairwell without looking. He would not take the plate. The next day, his stomach clenched and twisted. He drank water to fill it. The second night, the plate still steamed on the step. He forced himself to walk past again, jaw tight.
I can't do this. There's nothing left.
On the third evening, he stood on the stairs, hand shaking above the covered plate. He lifted it with both hands. The foil was warm. He had lost the battle. As he turned, movement caught his eye. Amelia stood in her doorway, still in her apron, watching. Their eyes met. He couldn't move. She gave a single, slow nod.
No words. Just proof she knows. And still cares. I don't deserve this.
Then she turned and quietly closed her door, leaving him in the hall with the warm plate and the heavier weight of unspoken understanding. The next morning, Eric stood outside apartment 2B, hand raised to knock, rehearsing the words he meant to say. He knocked twice. Each rap echoed louder than it should have. The door opened. Amelia stood there, her powder blue apron still dusted with flour, her eyes soft and questioning.
Just say thank you. Just say the words. Hey, I ran out of sugar. Do you have any I could borrow?
Her eyes held his for a beat too long. A flicker of understanding crossed her face.
Of course. Wait right here.
She returned with a small glass jar of sugar. As she handed it over, her fingers brushed his.
Coward. You couldn't even say thank you to her face.
He retreated into his apartment, the jar cold against his palm. The words he should have said stayed stuck in his throat. That night, Eric didn't wait in the hallway. He climbed the rusted fire escape, the cold metal groaning under his weight. Through the small kitchen window, he saw Amelia at her stove, stirring a pot with the same gentle care he'd seen on the stairs. He watched her spoon a single extra portion into a clean dish. No other plates, no other containers, just one. She wrapped it in foil, pressed down the edges, and picked it up. Her expression was soft, focused, almost reverent. She left the kitchen, and through the window, Eric saw the stairwell light flicker on. Then she returned, empty-handed.
No other plates. No other meals. It was always just this. Just for me.
The weight of it pressed against his ribs. Every night, she had stood in that kitchen and cooked for him alone.
Why? Why would she do this for me? A stranger, without ever asking for anything back.
He climbed down quickly, his footsteps heavy on the metal. He had to know. He had to know. He had to ask. He reached her door, the number 2B catching the dim hall light. He raised his hand, knuckles hovering an inch from the wood. This time, he wouldn't run. Eric's knuckles struck the wood 3 times. The sound cut through the hallway silence. The door opened. Amelia's face shifted from surprise to something guarded. She already knew.
I know, Amelia. I saw through the window. It's only ever one plate. It's for me.
She looked down at her hands, still dusted with flour, then forced herself to meet his eyes.
I noticed you'd stopped buying groceries. I didn't want you to go hungry.
Eric's throat tightened. The words he'd rehearsed dissolved into a silence heavier than any question.
I remember what it's like to have nothing and pretend you're okay. I couldn't watch you go through that alone.
She knew every day I was struggling, and she fed me without a single word.
He opened his mouth, but no sound came. The plate, the notes, the sugar, they all led here. Amelia reached across the threshold and touched his wrist. Not pity, just understanding.
Why didn't you tell me? All those nights, why pretend the food was for anyone else?
Because I knew if you thought it was charity, you wouldn't take it. I've seen your pride, Eric. It's all you had left. I didn't want to take that from you, so I cooked extra every night, hoping you'd just eat.
He looked at her, the weight of her words settling in his chest. She had guarded his dignity like something precious.
You are right. I would have refused, but I am grateful, Amelia, more than I can say right now.
A lump rose in his throat. He made a silent vow to repay her for every single meal, no matter how long it took.
I'll pay you back. Every plate. I swear on my life.
That's not why I did it. There's no debt here.
He nodded, but the weight didn't lift. He stepped back from the threshold, the hallway air suddenly colder. He walked to his apartment, her touch still burning on his wrist. The distance between them felt wider than ever. The days blurred into a rhythm of resumes and rejection letters. Eric sent dozens, heard nothing.
Keep it together. You are not a charity case.
Each closed door felt like a confirmation of his failure. He walked out of yet another office, head down. That evening, he stood before the plate again. His hand trembled above it, then withdrew. He retreated to his apartment, the choice carving a new hollow in his chest. The plate sat untouched until morning, a silent witness to his pride. The next day, a note was pinned to the foil. It said, "Please don't stop. It's not about debt." Eric read it, the words hitting harder than any rejection. The paper trembled in his hand.
She's still feeding me, even when I push away. I can't let my pride starve me.
That night, he lifted the plate, not as a thief, but as someone who would someday give back. A week later, a hardware store hired him to stock shelves. Part-time, minimum wage, but it was a start. He held his first paycheck, the paper crisp and foreign in his hands. He walked to the grocery store and filled a cart for the first time in months. Back in his kitchen, he unpacked the bags, placing eggs, bread, and vegetables into the fridge. He stood at the stove, following a recipe from memory. The smell of sautéed onions filled the room.
This is the first meal I've cooked in this apartment, and it's not just for me.
He wrote on a scrap of paper, "For whoever's hungry, including you." That night, he set his foil-covered plate on the stairwell, right beside hers. Then he retreated into the shadows, watching. Amelia appeared in her doorway, her expression shifting as she saw the second plate. Amelia lifted the second plate, her fingers finding the note beneath. She read it, and a smile broke across her face, soft, surprised. She looked around the empty hallway, confused, then walked toward Eric's door, still holding the plate. Her knock was soft, but it cut through the quiet like a bell.
You didn't have to.
Neither did you.
For a long moment, neither spoke. The silence between them had changed, no longer heavy but full.
Come in. Let's eat together for once.
He followed her into the kitchen, the scent of stew and warm bread folding around him. They sat across from each other at the small table, 2 plates of steaming food between them. The first bite was silent, but the silence was no longer lonely. It was the silence of 2 people who finally understood. The nights took on a rhythm. Eric would come home with a small bag, whatever he could afford, and Amelia would turn it into something warm. She taught him to chop an onion without crying, her hand guiding his. He learned the weight of a knife in his palm. Afterward, they'd sit on the stairwell, plates in their laps, talking about nothing and everything. The building's windows framed their silhouette, 2 people building a world in a kitchen. Eric's hands no longer trembled when he lifted a plate. The shame had faded, replaced by a quiet pride. Amelia caught herself watching him eat, her eyes glistening. She turned away before he noticed. The calendar on his wall tracked the weeks. Each cross a day he'd survived, a step closer to standing.
Almost full-time hours. Another month, and I might actually be okay.
The jar on his counter grew heavier, the coins clinking with promise. They stood side by side, stirring and chopping. A question hung in the steam, unasked but heard. That evening, after the plates were cleared, they lingered at the table. The candle had burned low, but neither wanted to leave.
You know, at first, I thought the plate was for someone else. Lisa, from 3A. I left it at her door once.
I knew it was you from the first night. You looked so hungry, but you never asked for help.
Then, why didn't you just say it? Why keep it anonymous?
Because kindness doesn't need a name. It just needs to be seen.
He reached across the table and took her hand. The gesture was silent, but it spoke of everything he'd never said.
Thank you, Amelia, for everything.
She squeezed back, her grip saying more than words could. The plate, the notes, the sugar, they'd all led to this. In that quiet kitchen, the unspoken finally had words. Not of debt or pity, but of a quiet, stubborn love. And they stayed there, hands intertwined, as the night wrapped around them. 2 weeks later, his manager pulled him aside. Full-time, starting Monday. He walked home in a daze, a small grocery store bouquet in his hand. He didn't go to his own door. He stopped at 2B, the flowers trembling in his hand. She opened the door, her eyes falling on the flowers, then on his face. Understanding dawned.
I am back on my feet, and I want to keep cooking with you. Every night.
A tear slipped down her cheek. She nodded, unable to speak, and stepped forward into his arms. They embraced in the doorway, the bouquet crushed between them, neither caring. That night, they cooked together, not from necessity, but from joy. The kitchen was louder than it had ever been. 2 plates were filled side by side, identical portions, no foil needed. They sat at the small table, forks in hand, no stairwell between them. Only the warm quiet of being together. No plate was left on the stairwell that night. The meal was shared, not given, and that was the greatest gift of all. The ritual continued, but now it was open. A small cardboard sign stood beside the plates. Free meal, no questions. Every evening, Eric and Amelia left 2 covered dishes on the step, then retreated to her kitchen to share their own meal. One evening, a familiar figure paused by the stair. Lisa, the young mother from 3A. She read the sign, looked around, and lifted a plate.
Thank you.
From the kitchen window, Eric and Amelia watched. His arm was around her shoulder, hers around his waist.
She took it. The sign really worked.
I once thought that plate was for her. Now it really is.
The kindness that had begun as a secret for one had grown, without force or announcement, into a quiet community. Word spread softly through the building. The plates were rarely left untouched for long, and the 2 who started it all sat on the steps, sharing a single fork of leftovers, their laughter echoing up the stairwell. One evening, in the quiet of Amelia's kitchen, they cooked side by side, no words needed. The rhythm was theirs now.
I never knew hunger could lead to this.
I never knew cooking extra could fill my life.
He turned off the burner. She set down her spoon. The silence between them was full, not empty. He stepped closer. Her hand rose to his cheek, thumb brushing the faint stubble on his jaw. The kiss was tender, a quiet seal over everything they'd never said. The oven timer chimed. Neither moved. The world outside could wait. When they finally parted, the sauce hadn't burned. The world felt steadier, kinder. They stood forehead to forehead, her apron strings tangled around his wrist, holding him close. Golden light poured through the window, wrapping them in a warmth that felt like home. Morning light fell on a small wooden shelf in the stairwell. 2 covered plates rested there, steam rising. For whoever's hungry, the building, once cold, now seemed to hold its heat a little longer each evening. Word had spread softly through the floors. The plates were rarely left untouched for long. But the real story wasn't the food. It was the woman who cooked extra every night, pretending it was for everyone, and the man who had finally been brave enough to accept it, plate by plate. That kindness had never been anonymous. It had only been waiting for him to accept it, and now they cooked the extra together, no longer in secret, no longer alone. Some things aren't charity. They're just love, patient and disguised as a warm meal. And in that stairwell, every night, it was set out for whoever needed it most.